What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com and almost Facebook today, but not quite. I got Facebook working and Instagram working for a small amount of time today. I made the announcement, and then a couple hours later, they recognized me and kicked me out again. So it didn't work out so well, but you know where I'm from. Marsh Comics on Twitter as well. And then also today I wanted to talk about project development. And to do that, I brought on a new friend, and a cool, awesome friend, Mr. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
What's up?
Nicholas Mueller, is it?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's easy to butcher that.
Well, I mean, it's like Bueller.
It really is. Yeah. That joke is not new. So
I'm sure you've gotten that probably from time to time.
A few times. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Nick, what can what tell people a little bit about like who you are and what you do, man.
Well, I'm Nicholas Mueller, and I am the creator of Demon Hunter Raven, and it's a fun little project that's running on Kickstarter right now. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 5 kids, so I'm busy. I work in marketing to some degree, so that's something I really love doing. But comics is a huge thing that I love doing as well. It's always been a passion since I've been young. So since I've been young, I've just been drawing, writing, and I'm really excited to share this series with people. It's kind of just blew up overnight for a lot of people. But for me, it's been kind of a long, slow thing. So I'm excited to share this with everyone.
Awesome.
It's a supernatural book with a lot of action, but it's got a lot of heart and story to it, because who wants to just read a book with people hitting each other? There's got to be some heart, some story, and some character development in it. So,
well, I mean, I think a lot of people like the stories where people are just hitting each other, but yeah, if you have some actual story in there, it just makes it so much better.
Yeah, it can't just be. Not everyone can pull off a Michael Bay, where it's just spectacle. I mean, only a few people can get away with that. So I don't think I'm one of them.
Yeah, well, you never know, but I'll tell you, man. Just looking at this art and kind of the story behind it and stuff, I'm definitely looking forward to getting this thing in my hands.
Nice.
What can you tell people a little bit about the actual story?
So the idea behind it is this is kind of a hyper-realistic world. It's not too unlike our own, but there are some people that are spiritually awakened. They can see into the other side of reality that we can't see, the other spirit realm. And in this other side inhabits demons, very crazy beings. And some people can see it at an early age. Well, some of those people are aware of it and are tasked with protecting it, and they are called the demon hunters. And there's various different kinds of demon hunters, and the one particular one we're focusing on for this series is Raven. And just like everyone else, their goal is to go and hunt demons and eradicate them, but they might all have different backgrounds and come from different reasons for doing it, but their goal is all the same: go hunt demons. And as I said, we're focusing on one individual character called Adam, who is Raven, and he is embedded with this ancient holy artifact called the Lightstone. And it grants him this supernatural armor that is almost sentient in itself, that it helps him fight in battle. And so that's why it looks like it's pulsating. It's got actual energy running through it. So it helps him fight and go about eradicating demons. Through a series of unfortunate events, his father goes missing as they're out going out and about. They're attacked and ambushed by a group of demons. And in the process, his father ends up disappearing, vanishing, and he becomes embedded with the Lightstone at this point. And he is saved by the secret order of the church called the Order, and they are the paramilitary group of the church that is tasked with hunting demons. And the head leader of that group is called the Crusader, and he's more of a military, as you can see right there on that cover right there. He's walking behind him with flames and everything because he just burnt a bunch of demons to the ground. So he is a military sort of mindset. You think of a drill sergeant. He's in your face. He's no nonsense, straight to the point. Do the mission, get the job done. as in our main character Adam is fairly young. He's 17, about to turn 18. He's still in high school, and so he's got a lot of growing up to do. And the events of losing his father kind of leave him emotionally unstable, and he's kind of a hothead. He kind of flies off the wheel. He's the type of guy that punches first and asks questions later if he remembers to. So the two of them clash instantly. So obviously missions don't always go well. You've got a hothead and a military guy that's like all no nonsense. And so these are some of the characters that you'll see in it. So chapter 1 deals a lot with him integrating into the order and looking for his father. And so that's about 48 pages. It's in black and white. So I got good comments about it. And so chapter 2 is what we're kickstarting right now. And that's going to be in full color. And we're going to be bringing in a new character that's going to be hunting Adam, and aka Raven, and her name is Violet. And throughout this, he's going to be fighting someone for the first time that's set to kill him, and is trying to assassinate him. And the whole entire point of that story is finding out who this is, and dealing with the ramifications of what he discovers from chapter 1. So you see here's some previews of the pages. Chapter 1 was in black and white, and then all preceding chapters are in color now. And chapter 0 was a little prologue that came before that's is in color as well. So, and there's a 20-page preview on our site. There's a link on the Kickstarter as well to go preview this. And there's a free download for chapter 0 as well. So I've got about 32 pages worth of free content that people can go view. And the Kickstarter is coming complete with about 94 pages, with the possibility of adding on another 20 pages for an additional story that if we hit our stretch goals, there's a possibility of another story being told right after this. And they're all integral, very intricate, and part of the same story. So I'm not big on doing like gimmicky things like doing little stickers and stuff like that. I want to send out more content. So this Kickstarter is really about just producing more content, getting more stuff out there, and continuing the series, because I'd like, that's kind of mainly what I want to do, is I want to tell stories. So
yeah, well, I think it's a good jumping on board point too, because I think you're offering, at least in one of the levels, or probably many of the levels, like the first one as well, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I want to keep it accessible. I think a lot of people sometimes they just want to know what they're getting, and then maybe they'll think about future, like getting something down the line. So I've got a tier for anyone at any different thought process and income level. We've got digital tiers for international people that, I understand international shipping is kind of crazy right now, and things are just crazy. So if you don't want to pay the huge shipping that might be involved, I've got a good digital tier as well that I provide everything for $15 for people that just, they want to have it, but they understand that maybe the price isn't right for them. So I want you to get this either way. So I'm going to put it at a particular set point that hopefully people agree that it's a good price. Because I know for me, sometimes I can't support everything that's out there, and sometimes $5 is all I can hand out. So even at that, you can get the second chapter for $5, and then you can do the digital catch up for $8, and then you can get everything for $15 digital wise, because I'm doing an art book and then previous things that I've done before. And then I just got approved for add-ons. So even if you back at the $10 level, which is just the second chapter, and you see something else you fancy in there, there's an option to do add-ons, so you can add on something extra. Sweet. In case you don't want to do something. So it's still in beta, so I'm not sure how well it's working. So if people have questions or issues, they need to message me, because I'm part of the beta program or whatever they're doing. So
yeah, I think I heard some people, maybe Jason Brubaker, talking about it. I think it's working, but we'll see. I guess.
Yeah, I just did a survey for them last night, because it wasn't. I added it and nothing was showing up. I was like, do I have it? And then this morning I suddenly had it, so they must have fixed it for me.
Maybe it's a delayed thing or something.
Yeah,
notification.
I'm so. Right.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think it's definitely cool. It reminds me actually a lot of a character that I plan on bringing forward eventually, called Shadow Star.
Cool.
And very definitely a different story, but kind of a similar design. But he's also is there. There's definitely like, I don't know if it's not technically demons. But it is in that realm of spiritual adversaries. So it's
I
interesting.
more power to you. And then if you want to talk about even just cross promotion or reference or like doing some sort of crossover sort of deal, I'm always up in
Oh,
game
that
for
would be
that and
so cool.
helping out. I love helping out other creators, just like you. You know, you were just talking about that earlier with me, and
Yeah.
um, I think the hardest part for any creator is just getting eyes on your project or getting people to see your stuff. Because to tell the truth, it's oversaturated. There's so much out there, and there's a lot of good projects out there, and to suddenly come out amongst those is incredibly hard, and to get noticed by people. And I think that was what I struggled with a lot early on, was just simply getting noticed, making headways, and just becoming a name to someone, or identified with something. And I'm glad to see
Yeah.
this time it clicked, because the first one was definitely not that case. I fought tooth and nail for every backer I got, and so it's kind of nice to see that there's getting momentum now finally.
You know, I was thinking about that today, actually. It's interesting. And it goes along with the whole project development thing, because part of the project development is getting the awareness out there as well.
Right.
And I was thinking about that because I was actually in the mall and I came across this collectibles shop that
Mm,
it's such a odd shop. Like to be in a, you go to a mall store and you would think, everything's kind of polished. There's things look nice and stuff. This shop was it was like a weird maze slash cave with all kinds of things. There were back issues in it, and they weren't like even in pristine condition. They were just like they
right.
bought a bunch of boxes of comics and just threw them on a table. Like, so anyways, that's like my favorite place in the world, is a bunch of random comics thrown on a table. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I did also notice Reborn. Actually, you know what? I noticed this in Newberry Comics,
Mm.
but it's related. But anyways, there was a copy of Reborn there,
By
the
Mike Miller and
in Capullo.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good series.
So I was just thinking of, because he also did a long time ago, he did another kind of indie project called, I think, Creeper or something.
The Haunt.
The Haunt. Nope, there's another one though.
What is
The
another
Haunt
one?
was a collaboration with him and McFarlane and Ryan Oatley, I think, and
Yeah,
Kirkman.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but there was another one that he did just like on his own, Capullo. And so I
Mm,
don't know. It's just interesting because even The Haunt is a good example as well. Reborn is a good example, because
yeah,
all of those projects didn't they were all really cool, actually.
yeah,
But they didn't I don't know about Reborn, because I didn't know about that until after the fact, but they didn't do what he did with Batman, you know? They didn't do that well, and maybe
yeah,
not even as good as Spawn. You know, and it's just interesting because the reason why I'm thinking about that is it's timing. Kind of like right now is a good
yeah,
time for indie creators, you know? Like if he
exactly.
were to do something now, like the same type of thing in Image or whatever, or even do like a Indiegogo or a Kickstarter, he'd probably, as long as he's involved with the campaign, because that's a problem too with some people. But um,
Yeah,
if he was involved, and I'm sure he would be, because he's a very hands-on kind of guy anyways,
right.
he would be kicking butt. And so are so many creators, and so I just think, like, it's interesting that you say, you've been trying to build this thing up for a while, and now it's starting to kick off, but it's kind of it's just a good time, for it, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I mean, just the circumstances of the timing and stuff. You know, it's not favorable for a lot of people, but there's certain avenues right now that are definitely playing, um, are definitely a good time to strike it right now. And uh, yeah, like you said, timing's everything. You can put as much time as you want in something; it can be good, but sometimes like you said, timing's not right. Um, and sometimes it's luck too. Luck can play a big
Yeah.
part of that. So
But also, too, another thing that's really important is you've proven yourself already. You've proven yourself with, uh, you know, the the polish of the project. you've already put out an issue. I mean, just doing that alone sets you above a whole lot of people acting like they're trying to do it.
Right.
And you've also had other campaigns that have been successful, if I'm correct. I think,
Um, well,
or at
not
least
really.
one.
My first one was a failure, and that was done about 2 years ago. And so that was a learning process, and just kind of realizing, because I didn't have an audience set up before that. I was just kind of going in there blind, and I put it out there. And huge lesson: don't put something out there and expect it to win if you don't have connections, an audience built up, and you just expect it to just work. It doesn't work that way. Um,
Well, at the very least, that didn't stop you from producing it.
Right, right. But there was times where I almost gave it up because, like I said, I'm a father. I've got a family to feed. So for me to take time and take time away from them and do this, there's sacrifices in it. And my wife puts up with a lot of crap from me, and she's she holds down the fort. And like even right now, she's getting our kids to bed so I can converse with you guys and do this. But there was a point where failure did seem like a really good idea. Like, do I drop it now or what's the point? Especially even with the first campaign for Demon Hunter, I hit my goal, but it was only $500, and I made it $100 past that point. And you're just kind of thinking, like, well, were people just pity buying it? Like, what was the correlation? Did they actually want this, or were they just doing it because they felt pity for me? And I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm just gonna keep rolling with it. And then I just wanted to keep doing it. And like you said, yeah, part of it's the commitment, part of it's just being consistent. Because failure, not a lot of people see the failure.
Hmm.
They don't see you get knocked down a lot of times. And like right now, everyone is noticing me because there was a partial amount of success there, but they didn't see the amount of times where I got hit hard and fell, or the struggles every night of just trying to push this and connect with people. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people either don't know about or aren't aware of, or they themselves are wondering, how do you do that?
Hmm.
Because it's not overnight. It looks like overnight, but it's quite literally there's months and months worth of work.
Hmm.
Just connecting with people, talking to people, shooting people DMs, asking them questions. I mean, there's quite a few people I would just go into their DMs and be like, I'm sorry to do this cold case, but I've really got a question here. Like, how are you doing this? How are you breaking that down? And some people were receptive. Some people were like, get out of here. So you never know. You never know. You can't you don't know until you try. And
Yeah.
not trying is the worst thing you can do. So
Yeah, I would agree. And you know, failure is the only way to get to success, in my opinion, anyways. So you might as well do it.
right, right,
Especially if and like you said, you might have decided to not continue pursuing it, and that wouldn't have been bad. These are life decisions, and they're important, and
right,
sometimes other things need to take priority, and I'm sure other things do take priority, but you still were able to you decided you wanted to you know, keep at it, and
right,
so I'm glad that it's starting to work out. And I mean, the thing is also, building up that kind of starting to build up the library of things you've created is a big important part of it too. Some people say that they don't actually sell their books, like novels and stuff, or
mhm,
comics too, until they've got 3 or 4 or 5 under their belt. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
worth it to keep going, and unless like you do all that work and then you're still really finding no reception. Eventually, you might have to try something different, but,
yeah,
if you see a little bit of success, that's usually pretty promising that you just need more eyes on it to see
yep.
more success?
And even I'll say it from a buyer's standpoint. Sometimes you don't want to support that first one because you want to see if they'll actually do good. Like, and even just going into
Mm,
a store, you want to actually make sure that there's quality behind it. Like, you want to read reviews. Is it worth my time? We're spending money, and we don't know if it's worth our time or our energy. And so there's a lot of intrepidation. So like when you see that there might be a library built up, like you're saying, there is a little bit more confidence in your purchase, and I completely understand that.
yeah. Yeah, totally. Um, so let's see. We got some people in the chat. I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. We got Ichthy5. He's this
Yo,
person.
Ichthus.
Nefarious is in here. What's that?
I was just saying, I just finally learned how to say his name correctly a few days ago, and
That makes sense. The 5
yeah,
is an S.
yeah, I didn't realize that at first.
Hey, I didn't either, obviously. My buddy Sideburns is in here. Dan, what's up? Mutual friend Matthew, how you doing, man? Thanks for
Hey, Matt.
hanging out with us. Just so you guys know, both of us will be on Matthew's channel Thursday if all goes well, and that will be awesome.
Good time.
We were on there a couple weeks ago too. Let's see what else we got. Calvary Collective. My body is ready. This was before we actually started. So, and then Stinch, sup suckers. It's good buddy here. He's awake. Nice. So yeah, we got some people in here. You guys are in their chat, and let's see. I just want to make sure I get to everybody. We got Jimmy Draws Art. One of these days, I'm not gonna have. Hopefully, I'm gonna get to the point. Not really. Hopefully, but one of these days, I might get to the point where I can't shout everybody out. What's up, Lawrence? Thanks for hanging out. We got Lame Vision Official saying hi to Jimmy, or he's also said hi all. So you guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out. I don't know how to say that word, but thank you. No such thing as an overnight success. Yes, this is very true.
Right.
And the flock of comics. Now that would be an image to see. That would be cool.
He's got a book coming out, and it's he's got a sign up page on Indiegogo.
Oh, sweet.
So I think people should check that out. Yeah, people should check that out. It looks really good.
Cool. Well, go. Is it called The Flock of Comics? Do you happen to know? Is that like the name of it, or?
Is he able to put it in the chat at all? Can he shoot a link in there?
He could put the name in there, but it won't. The link won't be linky.
Okay.
But
I couldn't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah. But if you go to Indiegogo and look up whatever name he hopefully puts in there,
I think it's the Flock.
The Flock. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Or if you guys want to come back to my Twitter tonight, I'll shoot it up there so people can come on right away and see it.
Sweet. So also just so people know, I already put the link in the chat. Also for Demon Hunter Raven chapter 2. And but there is also a link in the description for it. So yep, it's the Flock comic. Cool.
I knew it was something close like that.
Yeah. So go to Indiegogo and sign up for that. It looks, I mean, even just by the little avatar, if that's part of the art, it looks pretty cool to me.
Yeah.
So let's see. Only mods can share a link, unfortunately. Yeah, and I have no mods yet, so because I just haven't set that up. I keep forgetting. So anyways, as far as Demon Hunter Raven, and is this your first comic you've made, or
no, when I was back in the early 2000s, I was shooting to become professional. I used to work for several independent outsource groups, and when Alterna Comics first came out, they were doing anthologies, and I ended up in one of their first ones, and a 4-page short story with this woman that was in a garden, and then the garden ends up taking over. And I was working with another writer at the time called Josh Brown, and around that time, the economy was starting to crash. We had the 2008 recession hit, and income just was not coming in. And then I ended up getting really sick, and I was just kind of overworking myself. And so I had to take a step back. And so then I took a 10-year sabbatical and wasn't making anything for a while, and ended up meeting my wife, got married, and I just started kind of getting back into this game and taking it serious. And you can't feed a family on the income of a comic. It's just not profitable unless you're really high up there. Exactly. So
and he's about the only one who can. So
exactly. The only bad part is when I took that 10-year sabbatical, I lost my ability to draw. Like it was nowhere near what I used to do. So I ended up, which was okay. I ended up having to relearn a lot of things that I had created bad habits over, and I got kind of rid of that 90s hyper super out of proportion style. So I ended up kind of
I haven't
rebuilding.
gotten rid of that yet personally, but
Hey, it works for some people. For me, it did not work. Um, so I took that time to kind of learn how to color and do a few other things. And during that 10 years, though, I tried learning how to write instead of being sucky at it. So I mean, that's still subjective. Maybe some people still think I suck at it, but that's we'll find out more. But
no,
so yeah,
I doubt that there's very many people, if any, that think that. I mean, we just scrolled through a bunch of artwork that was pretty darn good. So,
thank you, thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
so not my first rodeo, but more of my first outward presentation because I had a lot of stuff just fall through.
Mhm.
I worked on like a 20-page one. We were submitting it to publishers, and then I don't know where the guy just dropped it, and I was like, "Ugh." And then I had like that happen like 3 to 4 more times after that. And you're doing a lot of this stuff for work for hire, and then they end up not paying
Yeah.
you. And so if you're working in the freelance world, like there's so many hurdles to jump over, like so many trust factors. Like even if you're a writer and you hire an artist, maybe they suddenly up and disappear on you, or maybe you are the artist and maybe they didn't pay you for the work. So
Yeah.
it's a gambling game. Um,
Especially when you're making comics, people who do that to comic artists, like they 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 should be slapped.
right, right. Well, and then you've got the writers that have the horror stories of like they paid this guy in full, guy did one page, never came back.
That's true too.
Right, right. So it's on both ends. I've heard horror stories from everybody, and I mean, you can vet someone as much as you want, go through all the credentials, make sure that they're delivering, and once in a while you have that one random incident. And luckily enough, that hasn't happened to me. I've worked with a few artists, and they've always been stand up guys like Robert Nix, Weldon, and they are just they produce amazing work. Oh, and Diago Albuquerque, these guys produce amazing work. And, you know,
Yeah.
so
Well, you got one off the ground here, so that's cool. It's already funded, but we're gonna try to get some of those stretch goals. So please, everybody, go over there and support. Um, so so you mentioned kind of like the 90s, and you took like a 10-year kind of break from it. It's funny because I feel like that is not all that uncommon, and I felt like such a loser because I did that same type of thing. And I'm coming to find out that there's a lot of other people out there just like me.
yeah, there's a market for it. There's definitely a market for it. I mean, Indiegogo is full of people that have that sort of style and they do it good. I did not do it good, so I had to adjust towards that. Um,
Mm,
so I mean, there's people that could. I had to find my strengths, and my strengths was not in those areas. Um, and just going back to project management, one of the biggest things is knowing your strengths and understanding what works and what sells. Because when people are putting out movies or companies are putting out movies, they're not going to put out the worst thing or the worst scene in a trailer. They're going to put out the best items that you're going to see. So a lot of
yeah,
times even when you're marketing your book, you understand what is selling your book. What is the thing that should be up in the forefront? Like obviously your cover should be the most immaculate thing because that's the first thing people are going to see. And then you want to play it by ear. Like your pages, are they up to snuff? Are they going to go with what they should? So for me, that 90s styles was my weakest point, and so I had to adjust to beef that up and do something that was um, worked for me. But
yeah.
there's
Well,
so
I
many
mean,
people that can do it.
I was also kind of saying because like that 10-year amount of time that you kind of skipped, like that's what I was saying. Like I've done the same thing. Like, and I've
Right,
heard I've heard a lot of artists say that they've done the same thing. But it's interesting because that doesn't mean it's over.
right, right. And sometimes you gain a new, fresh perspective when you take a break. You step away, and the industry changed drastically in that time that I stepped
Yeah.
away. I mean, Twitter wasn't a thing. Kickstarter was not a thing at the time. We were still going through the route of doing anthologies and producing these mini books, just because at that time you had to prove to a publisher that you could actually do content, you could deliver, and you could actually have a sizable audience behind you. And so me and this other guy were just pounding out work. We were just hitting it up one after another, and when you're not getting you're doing that work for hire for so much and you're not getting paid, and then you're working a full-time job, and not that these guys couldn't pay. It's just like, well, I took the agreement that we'll take the payment afterwards, and we never got picked up and things fell through or someone got sick or you get ghosted. And it really puts you in a sour position. And none of those guys were bad; they were still great guys, but just the environment we were working in is so cutthroat in some cases, and it was way different back then.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
so, but nowadays you have the ability to go up to an audience. You have the ability to do a Kickstarter, do a crowdfunding site, and connect with people and socialize on these networks and everything like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Um,
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it actually on Matthew's channel,
mhm.
where there was a thriving indie scene back in the '90s and before even Image came out. There was
Yeah,
a thriving indie scene, but they had it way harder than we had it.
yeah,
We
yeah.
have it now. Like the opportunity now, it's a lot easier to get to where they were at.
Right, right.
The sacrifices they had to make that work, like, it's
Well,
crazy.
and some of those guys were cranking out a book every other month or a month, and these were
Yeah,
indie guys, and they were just, they were black and white comics, but they were pounding them out.
right.
And I think about some of us, I'm like, we get maybe a book every 6 months or 9 months, and that's
That's a
if we,
that's
yeah,
a good case scenario.
that's a good, yeah, yeah. So there's so many of us that can't even meet that measurement.
Yep.
Um, so it's all, yeah. I wish I could.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting for sure. So in that way we kind of stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
Even if they're not very well known giants. Some of them are. You got Dave Sims, Cerebus, and
Yep.
um now I'm drawing a blank, but there's a bunch of them that are the Turtles is
Yep.
probably the obvious one. And there's a bunch more. But yeah, it's just really interesting. So let's see. So when you're kind of approaching this, like we kind of spoke about it a little bit, but you've got a really like I see a lot of campaigns, and a lot of them are really good these days.
Mhm.
But there are some that you know you could tell almost that they're indie. That's probably what mine might look like when I put mine out finally. Um, but then some of them, like they really just they're like this is just like anything you'd
Right.
see in a comic shop, or maybe even better. And I feel like your stuff is kind of in the range of that. And
Thank you. That's really cool to hear.
yeah, I mean, it really does. So what kind of is your approach as far as that? Because you obviously um, seem like you're trying to match that kind of standard and things.
Yeah. Actually, it was someone gave me some really great advice, and I forget who it was. So apologize to that person if you know who it is. Hit me across the face. Anyways, what they said is determine the amount of success you want, and then look at what is successful in that market. I'm a big admirer of Jim Lee, Michael Turner when he was still around. Like those guys are just resonated with me. And I mean, like I'm a big fan of the original Witchblade, uh, Jim Lee's Batman Hush, and all those guys. So I always ask myself, I'm like, okay, what makes them successful, and why are they so prominent in the industry? And so a lot of times, not that you want to copy the success because you can't copy their path, but you can ask what made them successful. So
Mhm.
in a lot of cases, I said, okay, this is what it takes to look like a professional, and this is what it means to get into that level. And so I really started kind of pushing myself to at least imitate that to a degree. And it also helped was just hiring people that have that sort of caliber. Approaching Robert Nix and approaching Matthew Weldon was probably the key to a lot of that because, in all honesty, those guys boosted me up, and I'm not too keen on my own stuff. I'm probably the hardest on my own stuff, but being able to work alongside with those guys and having them bounce material back at me and just seeing the way that they performed some of the things got me thinking like, oh, okay, I've been doing that wrong. So a lot of times is you got to look at what is success, what you want to be, what is your level of success, because what I'm saying my level is might not be where you want to be. Because what I'm pushing for is I want to be with those guys. And maybe not directly considering the market right now and what's out there. Or maybe like you want to be on a Brian Polito level. Like who wouldn't want to be that? But maybe you want to be on a different level, like Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So you got to determine what is that level of success and what do you have to do to meet that. And so
Right.
start having conversations with my wife and being like, okay, I was talking originally, it's not going to be put any money into it. It'll just be Kickstarter. I want to do it differently now. And she looked at me a little frustrated and be like, what? So um, always make sure you're talking to your spouses if you're married or, have a significant other. Don't just suddenly start throwing cash out the window. Um, but there's guys out there right now that you can hire, and um, they are the price range that they are. And so be aware of that, and put some money aside. I paid for a lot of this out of pocket right off the bat. So like my funding goal was just to simply get a print run going.
Mhm.
Anything
Yeah.
else beyond that is just to add extra stuff to the book and beef it up more. Like I said, one of the sketch goals is to just add more pages to the book.
Well, you save a lot of money by being the writer and the artist,
Yeah.
for sure. But obviously, I don't. Did you do the color? Oh, well, you said it's black. It has been black and white. The new ones are going to be in color. Are you doing
Yep.
the colors or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
I've
you
done.
save some money there as well, but you
Yeah.
have some other services that you do pay for, and I mean,
Yep.
just so for anybody out there who may, because I do actually have a lot of young viewers,
Hmm.
and anybody out there who may not know, on an indie level, if say you're just a writer and you don't do art, you don't do anything, maybe you could do lettering, but like other than that, like you just you're not as involved in the creative process outside of the writing and the direction of the whole project, which obviously is a huge part. um, and you need to hire out the artists and things like that.
Hmm.
On a lower level, you're looking at probably somewhere around maybe $3,000 to $5,000
Yeah.
to pay for people to help you bring about like a 20 page comic. It's
Exactly.
and that's that's if you're getting a deal, kind of. So
Yeah.
it costs money. So you put your Kickstarter level at 500. Now, again, the fact that you can do a lot of that stuff really
Hmm.
helps out. But still, like, that's not accounting for your own time, that it took a
Right.
long time to make that. And it's fair to be paid, a few $1,000s to draw a comic, like, or
Yeah.
however much, depending on the page. You have a pretty good sized page count as well, so the more pages, the more money it is. And
Yeah. Well, and also not to even just talk about the price of funding the book and paying for other people to outsource it, if you are a writer doing that, is more people need to understand what it takes to print the book,
Mhm.
and go to a printer. There's been so many horror stories of people going to a printer, and it far exceeds what they had projected or even what their goal reached. And
Mm.
so a lot of cases, like I use Comic Wellspring, and they are fairly decent prices, and they give you your stuff at a very decent time frame. Like their shipping date rate is like 2 weeks. You've got some guys that are maybe 3 months,
Yeah.
and so that's a huge part of creating trust and consistency with your fans. Because I'm a fan of a lot of projects. I back a lot of stuff, but the biggest thing, I'll come back to the people that have consistently come back and put out work after work and continue to improve. And so when you're creating a project, don't just think about the creative part. Think about the technical stuff that takes you to the last part of it. Do you have the ability to print it, and can you do it within goal? Um, and then all the other knickknacks that you want to add in, because crowdfunding is not just about the book. It's about creating hype, about providing extra stuff, because you want to do stretch goals, and then you want to add other things, because if you just have one book, people want more, especially if
Yeah.
they're excited for it. They want to get more out of it. So.
Yeah. And not only that, another cost that people, unfortunately, I mean, I've heard a lot of people screw this one up,
Mhm.
is the shipping costs. You do a
Yeah.
crowdfunder, and yeah, $500 or however many, much money depending on your reach, um, you know, might cover the printing, but you
Mhm.
gotta account for shipping. If you don't account for shipping,
Yeah.
then you're gonna be paying stuff out of your pocket, you know?
Well, especially international. If you
Mhm.
don't, and that's way too random. Like it's not a like a,
You can't
a
really like,
yeah.
count it in the cost. It's really hard to
It
kind of account
fluctuates.
for it.
Yeah, yeah. And in the US, it depends on how you're going to be structuring it too. Like, are you going to just use a vanilla envelope? Are you using a Gemini mailer? What can you get away with? And then you have to account for that there might be a mailman that's having a pissy day, and he's going to be handling your package and you put all this time and care, you've created a really good, decent product, and then some guy at the far end that has no care, no idea what he's even handling, bends it to get into a mailbox, and now your customer, your backer, has now gotten a creased comic, and it's not your fault, but did you put some cardboard in? Did you insure it? Or however you go about it. But there's a lot of factors that come in after the campaign's done. A lot of things that will delivering the product is the most important part after you have finished. And if that's where people will decide to come back. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes maybe you could put like your comic in like a titanium package and it'll still come damaged. Like
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and then the other thing I discovered too is you might be really you might hit all those things. You'll still have that one person that comes in like, I never got my book, and you're like, I sent out all the packages, and you'll go and search, you'll go through, and you find out they never did their survey, or they never filled out this one part, and they never follow through on something. And so I try to go and seek out those people as best I can and be like, did you get your book? Because I don't want them to come back and be like, I never got my book. And I'm like, fill out your survey.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know your address.
Yep, I did Kickstarter somewhere close. I think it was the same year that Kickstarter started.
Okay.
For a CD project, a music project that I created. And it did fund, but there's probably a few people, like 2 or 3 people who never got a package because they never gave me any information.
Right.
And there's not anything you can do, really. You can do your best, like you said, to seek it out and see if you could find the person. But, often the only thing, when they back it, the only thing you might get is maybe an email. I think you get like an email on Kickstarter or something. I forget. It's been a long time, but
yeah. And then if you're smart enough to do an update before everything comes down to the closing to remind everyone that there's a survey coming, that's something I'm going to do this time. I didn't do that with my first one because there's a lot of learning. I saw the Flock had a question asking if I draw digitally, and yes, I do, because I used to draw traditionally. I was traditional all the way up until about 5 years ago, up until the point that my kids could start walking and have crayons, and they started destroying all my stuff. And so I moved to digital, and none of that stuff gets destroyed anymore because they started coloring it, and I lost a lot of projects that way. So I was pretty irritated.
I always there's always the horror stories of like you're just about to finish a page and all of a sudden your ink just falls over on the whole page or something like that, or all kinds of different things that could happen. And so there's definitely that. My whole thought was originally was, well, then you can't sell the pages, but
right.
Then I realized that nobody wants to buy my pages. Maybe eventually, if I ever get, to a certain, but for the most part, most people aren't trying to buy your pages unless you're like, something about your art really stands out, or you just have a lot of awareness around what you're making.
Yep.
So, but eventually, you might be able to sell those pages, but
right.
Well, you have to weigh things and what's important for you.
You should still provide it though, because there's a potential that there's someone that just likes your stuff as is.
Yeah.
And they want to support you, and they want to come in and they want to have that, because sometimes it's a prized possession. So like if you have the possibility to do that, I always say do it, because that's possible. If you're willing to depart with it, I should also add that, because sometimes we don't want to let go of it. But if you see the value of letting someone else have it, there's a potential that someone just wants it because they can go, I have the first Marshall piece. It's right here. And, it's sitting right there with them. And for some people, that's a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, I look for that too, sometimes if actually somebody tweeted something out today. Actually, I think it was you. I think maybe you tweeted somebody else's Indiegogo or Kickstarter, or somebody did. It might not have been you, and it was a cool project. But I noticed one of the artists in it had like some cool art, so I clicked their website link, and some of their art was like, I'm like, wow, that's really cheap. And so I'm like, maybe,
right.
I mean, it's not even so much as an investment, but like I like original art, and usually it's too expensive for me,
right.
But but I was like, hey, maybe I'll check that out, you know. So
Right.
we'll see, but
And there's always a potential. There's always a possibility. And what we tend to say in marketing is you're leaving money on the table.
right,
Don't ever leave a chance for yourself to leave money on the table. Put that in there if you're willing to depart with it. That's a big thing too.
right. Now you've this is the second time I think you've mentioned your background in marketing, and we talked a lot about this on Matthew's channel.
Right.
But I think my viewers would love to hear some stuff about it as well.
Right.
Does when we think about product development, like how early of a stage are you thinking about marketing?
You want to think about it right away, actually. In terms of market value, I think I heard another creator put it really, really well. Is think of your book and then also think about the trailer that needs to go along with it. How are you going to sell this thing? Is it marketable? Who are you selling this to? So number one is you want to think about your target demographic. Are you selling this to 35-year-old up males? Are you selling it to females 13 and up? Because who you sell it to will determine how you sell it, how this product is produced. Because if you might be making a product for yourself, but you also have to sell it. So who are you selling to? And then think of the best pieces that you want to put out there. So the cover is always going to be your best. It should be the best thing. Should be the thing in the forefront. And then characters. People love seeing characters. They want to know more about the character, and then they want to start knowing about the world. What are they inhabiting? So think about your selling points, because as you're building this world, what do you like about it? What are people going to like about it? What are people going to gravitate to? Because a lot of times I think back to the Japanese manga production, how they do things. Shonen is Japanese for action, boy action, and that sort of stuff, and it's curated towards that demographic. And so when you think about that, within that Shonen Jump magazine, there's not going to be something that sidesteps out of that realm. It's all curated towards that particular demographic, projects, and action within that realm. So their viewers know what they're getting. So if I get a book that is being marketed as an action book, and I get it, it's a comedy, I might be a little let down. I want to get what I'm being told I'm getting. I mean, very few people can get away with subverting expectations, with giving you something else than what you were told you're going to get. I mean, how many times have we seen a trailer and the movie was sold to us in a way different way, and then we ended up watching it and it was not that movie? So, right. So think about what you're selling, how you want to sell it, because the story should be just as important as your marketing plan. And the next thing you need to start doing is connecting with other fellow creators, and the hardest part I think for a lot of people, even, and this is the hardest part for me, was figuring out how do you get that audience. Well, you can't get an audience unless you have a product. So that's probably the hardest part, and that can be what I'm trying to say here. That's not going to be an easy road for anyone, because each person is going to find their audience through different means. And so one of the things you can do is simply connecting with other creators that are within the same realm as you, people that want to tell the same stories that you're in. Because if you're starting to connect with a bunch of webtoon artists, but you want to make Kickstarter books that sell on Kickstarter, you're probably in with the wrong crowd. You might like that crowd, but you need to determine who are you selling to. And so if those guys then start putting links out to all your stuff, and they're putting out to webtoon people that only love free products, they might not go and buy your stuff. But if you want to go sell to people that want to buy stuff, you need to think about who is in those crowds, and then you need to go market to those crowds. So like big demographic areas are Facebook, Twitter. Instagram can be really hard. That's a really tricky one, and it's organic algorithm. The organic algorithm is gone on Instagram, and Facebook's really tricky. Like you got to know the current algorithm, but Instagram's like gone organically. So once you were one of those early people, like 5 years ago, 7 years ago, that was on there, they cut your reach. Like my number on Instagram might show 900, but my reach is only 100, so it's completely not there. Twitter, you got to talk to people. You got to get up there. You can't just be putting out links. No one cares about a link. Like if right now, if someone were to drop a link in our comment section, what do we care? We have no connection, no correlation to it. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in marketing is people make a purchase based upon an emotional idea. They want it to resonate with them. Again, like when you're watching a movie trailer, we all love to judge a trailer at the beginning before a movie starts. We all be like, I don't think so. That wasn't funny. Or, oh, that had some cool action. We want it to emotionally resonate with us. So think also when you're planning out your story, how are you gonna resonate those areas? So a really, really quick summary of like marketing in that, but connect
Yeah.
with people. That's the biggest thing, is connect with people. Don't just, there's an old saying of, if you build it, they will come.
Mhm.
Not today. Not today. We don't have that same system. You need to have a connection. You need to have other creators, and you need to talk to fans. You need to be real. You can't just be always shilling your stuff. One of
Right.
the things that my mentor always told me is, if someone's always constantly you selling something, you get annoyed. You're just like, "Ah,
Yeah.
it's not real." So the best salesman can sell you something without ever bringing up a product or actually pitching you something. They're
Yeah.
real. They're connecting with you, and at some point, you're just like, "Oh, this guy's real," you know. And then you suddenly find out they got something. They're like, "I think I'm gonna buy something." So
Yeah.
be real.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I can always say. Don't be shilling your stuff 24/7.
Well, I think, I think that's a common thing. I think people kind of know that intuitively, but then at the same time, when it comes to the time for them to do it themselves, they're like, okay, I gotta get the word out. So I'm gonna start telling people about it in my Instagram, my Twitter,
Yeah,
my YouTube even. I'm gonna get the word out and see, maybe I can get some likes and some subscriptions and like people subscribing, this and that. And like, I mean, I talk about that stuff to a certain degree too, because more
yep,
like I talk about my subscribers sometimes, like the number, I mean, of the subscribers, because
mhm,
I think people are actually along the ride with me. Like
yeah,
when they see, like, if I don't say, "Hey, we got to 5,000 subscribers," you know, they won't know. It'll just pass by and it won't be a big deal.
right,
But if they see that I'm going on a journey and I kind of take them on the journey with me, that's why I do it. It's not because I
yeah,
care that much about the number, because honestly, vanity metrics are not, that doesn't, just because you have, so many subscribers, so many likes, that doesn't mean you're gonna even have a successfully funded, whatever you're trying to
yep,
do.
yep. And
It
I
is
think,
about that connection and the,
yep,
building that rapport.
exactly. And I think once you have an audience, I think you should shill, or when I say it's shill, I think you should um congratulate your audience. You should, like you were just saying, like talk about, like, there's 5,000 of us. Like I didn't just make it, like we all made it. Like I think that's, there's a fine line between becoming annoying with over saturating people with with your stuff, and then being having your audience to come along with you. And for me, a lot of people ride that line so closely. And from what we've talked about is, like, you've got a good handle on that, and you've got a good grasp of how to um, acknowledge that, and make your audience feel like they're not just being sold something, like you value them. Because people can tell when you don't value them, like you just
Yeah.
want them for money. And I think a lot of people lose the importance that there's another person behind that. There's people following you.
Yeah. Well, I think one reason why people might see that with me is because I haven't really sold them anything yet. I mean, there's been a few little things, but usually, if anything, I'm like just sharing other people's, Indiegogos and stuff. Um,
Right, right.
so I don't know. It,
But
but
that's a
eventually, I am
valuable
I
part
am
too.
leading up to it, and I'm also preparing people, saying, "Hey, sometime early next year, we're gonna finally have a crowdfunder," and so
Right,
I'm just saying it. We'll see
right.
what happens. I don't expect to be even funded. I expect to maybe be funded, maybe not. You just really don't
Mhm,
know.
mhm.
But my focus is, when I do a YouTube video, even when I have somebody on, my focus is to help. Like for you, I want to help you and your campaign. But as we're talking, this is kind of like one of those meta things. Like, as we're talking, I also have in my mind, I'm thinking, how can I bring out something that's valuable to the people who are listening right now? Like,
Exactly, exactly.
that's where my focus is, probably primarily, really.
Yep,
And
yep,
because I'm doing that, when people see that they've gotten value from something, I mean, I get a lot of comments saying, "Thank you. Oh, I didn't think about it that way," this and that,
yeah,
things like that. I'm just trying to help people, and I kind of just really like doing that. So it's like I just do
yeah,
that, and it's only natural. It's a natural human thing to want to reciprocate when the opportunity presents itself, you know.
Exactly. And that's I think where people lose the line of they just want to sell their stuff. They want people to buy it and then they get desperate. But if you have the mentality that you're out there to help people, like you were just saying, people are going to acknowledge that better. Like if more creators had that stamp, you'll notice that the more successful creators, the creators that have a name for themselves, like you, they help people. They're
Mm.
not just selling a product 24/7. They're creating value, they're helping people, and they're promoting other projects. And those are the guys that have a better understanding, like you, Marshall. Like you have a better understanding of what it takes to be in that area. Because I could tell you, there's a lot of guys that will just shoot you a link randomly in a Facebook Messenger, and just it's just a link to their project, and they've never created a connection, and you're just like, okay, how am I supposed to respond to this? And so a lot of people forget that there take steps before that. That
Mm.
before you share maybe your project, like Marshall's already taken the time to basically create that connection with people. He is a face to people. Like you, I'm sorry, you are a face to people. You have that connection with people, so you have the ability to go. I'm going to be putting something out soon. Compared to a lot of guys out there that they're just putting out their connection there with just the link to their project. So
Right.
it's a lot like a telemarketer. No one wants that random call. Be like, you want some health insurance? No.
Well, you know, I'll be honest too, is, you know, it's not like I haven't done the other that other way, you know, before too, you know, back, you
Yeah.
know, especially, you know, in the early days of the internet, I had no clue just like anybody else,
Oh,
you
I did
know.
too.
I was
Hmm.
on MySpace shooting links out, you know, and and I mean, I was back then I was trying to do my hip hop music, and you know, I always think of this time where I was, you know, we had a hip hop group, but it was like kind of international. So we more really talked over
Mm,
the internet and things like that. But there was some people out there in the group who were having more success than I was. And I
uh,
felt like I had some pretty good stuff, you know, to
right.
share. But um one thing I, I kind of got jealous. I felt I had to like manage my emotions about it eventually,
Hmm.
and come to terms, because what I realized was the reason why is because they got out and did shows. They
Yep.
actually spent their own money, and took the time to go visit different, you know, areas, and even more people in the group, where I just couldn't really do that so much, just in my situation. And so
Hmm.
they had a lot more of this communication back and forth with a lot of different people.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then I came to the realization that the reason it doesn't matter how much skill you have, the reason why they're making more headway is because they're working harder, they're getting out there, and they're giving, you know, they're just giving. And because of that, like I
Yeah,
said, the reciprocation is just a natural human trait. Like
it really is.
if you go to, you know, Subway, and the person has a great attitude, and they're going above and beyond to help, even just put your sandwich together, and actually asking questions,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
at the end of the thing, you might want to give them a tip. And
Exactly.
if they have a bad attitude, and they're just slapping stuff together, and they're barely paying attention to you, then you're gonna be like, "What the heck? I'm not coming back here again." Like,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, you bring up a good point because I was listening to a Brian Polito interview a little while ago, and he was talking about okay, so Lady Death is kind of a morbidly, it's a book about death. It's got a lot of stuff in it. He goes, but Brian, you're a very upbeat person. There's a contradiction here between the book and you. And he goes, like when I'm out meeting people, my job isn't to be the the physical representation of that book. It's to sell you something. It's to be a positive enjoyment for you. Like not only you enjoying the book, but you have to have an experience with me as well. So at the same time, if I give you a bad experience, you're gonna remember. That's gonna be with the book as well, and you won't be able to enjoy it. Like we have such a hard time sometimes separating the artist from the art with so many things that have happened. Like maybe someone does something that we don't like, and now we can't enjoy that particular product as well anymore. And so a lot of times we need to remember that when you're putting out a product, you yourself are also the salesperson. You're the pitch and how you present yourself. And like you said, like are you giving a positive experience? Are you being joyful? And um, that's like the biggest battle right there.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, the thing is, uh, I also want to say, like, you know, the people. there might be people in this audience who are like, "Oh crap, I kind of did that." I kind of am the guy who sends out the links. But that's okay. Like the first of all, because that's what you do, you probably didn't get that much awareness anyways, so nobody's ever gonna
Yeah.
really know. But that being said, like, you can change and do start learning some of these other things.
Yep.
And I mean, the thing you said, it's like they have to have an experience with you. Like,
Hmm.
one thing we don't realize a lot of times as creators who are like in our rooms or in our studios just hunkered down all this time doing our thing, we don't realize that what we're actually doing, it's not just like we're making a comic because we want to make a comic and we
Hmm.
want to get it out there. That's our vision. It's what even the comic itself is. It is entertainment. We are
Yeah.
in the entertainment industry. If if you want to make a career out of it, if it's just a hobby, then
Hmm.
whatever. But the entertainment aspect is still important, even if you want to share it and get some response.
Yep.
But I think you automatically want to entertain anyways, like sharing, and that can range. It doesn't mean you're laughing, or there's all kinds of ranges of what
Oh
entertainment
yeah.
means. But the same way, when you're doing, you know, your marketing, you still, even with that, you want to entertain. You
Hmm.
want them to have fun or whatever it is,
Hmm.
even with the trailer you put out, or
Right.
whatever it is that you put out. I mean,
Yeah.
you
Because
even said that when you were talking about putting out your best pieces.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and unlike when like the mainstream where they are just putting out a product and it's based upon that particular item, with crowdfunding, you're not only just putting out your book, you're putting out yourself. A lot of
Yeah.
people are backing books and projects based upon that they want to support that individual. Um, and so that becomes a huge barrier for some people because maybe they have insecurities, maybe they don't feel like they're good enough to put themselves out there. And that's a struggle for a lot of us. One of my biggest things with the first campaign is I hid behind an avatar and I was too scared to show my face. And I
Mhm.
didn't want to be like up in front. I was like, maybe they can hear my voice. I didn't want to be that up front. And then finally I just started pushing myself. I'm like, okay, I've got to show my face. I've got to be a little bit more exuberant and I've got to have an excitement for my own product because if I'm not excited about my product, why should anybody else be?
Yeah.
And so you got to think about every avenue because some campaigns can do there's exceptions to the rule and don't get me wrong there's some people that can do that without any of those things with it um and more power to them because I don't man that's awesome that you can do that but and what I'm mostly saying is what's worked for me and the things that I was taught. It doesn't mean that these are 100% concrete things that will happen or even work for you.
Mm.
There's a lot of trial and error to everything, and what worked for me might completely fail on your end. And maybe sending out that cold link actually might work for you 1 out of 100 times. But don't expect every single thing that you do to have success
Yeah.
because what worked for someone else might not work for you, and what worked for you might not work for someone else. It's yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, there's a lot of people who do this YouTube thing differently.
Yeah.
Um, whether you like him or hate him, Ethan Van Sciver is an example
Hmm.
of somebody who gets a lot of uh recognition for what he does. And there's other people who are very well known who have tried to do crowdfunding and have not
Yep.
gotten that recognition. Before Ethan Van Sciver started doing his videos, I personally didn't even know who he was.
Same here.
Um, but now I definitely know who he is, and
Yep.
what he has going for him is not something I can do. And I do YouTube too. I've been doing YouTube
Hmm.
for way longer than he's been doing
Oh
YouTube,
yeah.
and he has gotten further with it than I have. Like,
Right.
but that doesn't mean I should copy what he's doing, because what he does is like, there's a lot of jokes, there's a lot of controversy, there's a
Yep.
lot of just non-comic content.
Hmm.
um you know and for me, I'm more like on the, maybe somebody, like Mark Crilly. Like, I'm kind of on the nice guy side of things. Not that
Yeah.
Ethan's not nice. I'm not making any judgments either one way or another,
Exactly.
but like, that's just how my energy is. I tend
Yep.
to be, and I focus more on like trying to inspire people and excite people
Yep.
about making comics. Like, that's just what's in me. And so I have to use that,
Yep.
once I've, and how do you find that out though? Because if you first um if you like are just starting trying to make a YouTube channel or whatever it is you're trying to do to get the word out, you might not even know what your thing is, you know?
Mhm.
You got to do a lot of it to find out, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And then like you have like this experience with marketing, and I've heard you talk about it a few times, and you're excited about it, and that's definitely a big part of what I'm sure people like when they hear you talk, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I like to break it down between, and I'm probably people will hate this comparison, but so you've got EVS on one side, who he knows how to engage with his audience. Whatever you think about him, the man knows how to work with his audience. He knows what he has and he works with it, and he does an amazing job. Whatever your views are of him, break it down to the logistics of what he does. And
Mm,
let's go over to the side of Doug TenNapel. I That guy's work to me is astounding, and I love his model because his model is do the work, put out the content, and let that stand for its own. And he's out there, he's in front of people, and whatever you think of him, he's got a very different way of doing it, and his audience responds to it in that same way. Of they're all about his content, and EVS runs a show and has books with it. But Doug is all about the content. He wants to be known as the creator that put out this, and this. And I very much want to follow that same sort of idea, just like the guys that are doing Common America and Black Ops, Tim and Mark. They're all just putting out content right now. They want to show off. They want their books to stand out, and so that's very much the model that I'm trying to follow right now. And if I can keep pumping out book after book, and that's kind of my marketing strategy right now. It's clear cut to the point. If you like my books, I'm gonna provide you with another one. You like that book? Hey, guess what? There's another one coming out. So, and like you were just saying, each one is going to be different. Not and like what EVS does, that works for him, and it might not work for me. And I'm more about the content. I wish I could do YouTube. I have no knack for that.
well, I wouldn't say that, because you've been on YouTube videos, and I think you do fine. And
Thank you.
you probably would do fine if you had your own channel too, and you might find that you like it more than you realize. It does take, just like everything else though, it takes a lot of effort, and you
It
already
does.
know on the marketing side how
Yeah.
this kind of thing goes. So
Right. Right.
what kind of, you probably can't talk about the actual business of your marketing, I'm assuming, but like, is it in the entertainment type of stuff, or
Um, I can't say fully what it is, but it's a lot of hands-on marketing. It's with people, and it's a lot of personal marketing. The particular industry I work in, it's half marketing and half a different thing. So if I'm not marketing, I'm not doing the other half of the job. So I need to be able to be personal
Mm,
with people. And so if I fail in that area, I'm not getting paid basically. But
yeah.
there is some entertainment in it. But I try to keep that hidden because my family life is uh,
Oh yeah.
something I try to keep private. But
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's I was just curious if it happened to be kind of, in a similar industry, but I don't know. I think it's also another thing I've heard with like sales, because selling and marketing are two different things. They're
yes,
related. They work together, but they're not the same exact thing.
yeah,
Um,
oh,
but
definitely,
one thing I've heard about selling, from many sources is, everybody is a salesman. Um,
yeah,
and that pertains to like work, but that also pertains to just life in general. Like
yep,
you can't even to get to a point where you can, you know get a significant other to want to collaborate with you in a life.
exactly, exactly.
You can't just be like a dirt bag and expect, that to happen. Yeah, there has to
Very
be
few
some.
people can get away with that.
There are, unfortunately. But, but even when it comes to work, like my job, I've talked about it many times. I work in a warehouse. I've done a lot of delivering, and
Mhm,
um, I've kind of done everything, almost everything at my job. But,
mm,
even when I'm working in the warehouse, if I can make sure that the orders are correct and things are packed in a certain way that
mhm,
are helpful, because there's a way you can pack the stuff where it's a jumbled mess, or there's a
okay,
way that you can pack it and it's the customer is like, oh, I'm so glad they separated this because it would have took me
Yeah,
forever to find this little piece, so there's things like that. There's
exactly.
also when I happen to talk to the customers, and do I have a good attitude or am I a jerk?
Exactly.
Like all that stuff adds to the experience of the customer. And if they have a bad experience with any of that stuff, they're less likely to do business with the business I work in.
Exactly. It all comes back full circle. It really does. Because each step is just as important as the next one. And you want to make sure that and I should clarify too, if you make a mistake, the worst thing you can do is blame it on the
Mm.
person that is backing you or buying stuff from you. Never turn around and say, I'm sorry, but you're an idiot. Like, don't do that.
Or blame
Take
it on anything.
Yeah, take
You did blame
responsibility.
is not a thing that works.
Yeah. The worst thing you do is come up with an excuse. Just tell them that you're gonna make it better.
Mm,
Even if you can't figure it out in that moment, turn around and say, "I have to figure this out because
mm,
this customer is worth it for me to keep them," and turn around. Because if anybody's worked in any sort of customer service, I'm sure we all know the typical rule of the customer is always right. Might not be true in every situation,
mhm,
but if you need to hold that true for your own work and ethic, that if someone comes back to you and they say, "Never got my book," or "Hey, this is bad," or "I didn't like this thing," there's certain critiques that you could probably take as a grain of salt, but always go back and decide that you're gonna fix it.
yeah,
Um, don't pull a Walmart scenario where the book never goes to the person and it goes to Walmart instead. Always take responsibility.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's actually, in a funny way, that's an advantage that we have over
Mhm.
Marvel, over DC, over any big company because, yeah, they can do that to a certain extent. They probably
Right.
should do a better job of that. But that being said, like we have the mobility to
Yeah.
kind of act in that way, whereas they're a big corporation. They can't It's harder for them to get their infrastructure to work in a way so that it does that on an individual basis.
Right. Right.
Like, when has, you know, could I don't know, when has, like, Marvel ever, like, come, to a single collector's house and been like, "Hey, I'm sorry that this, didn't work out for you. Can I make it better?" Like,
John, we
so
we read all your tweets. We've really been wrong this whole time. I'm glad we finally opened our eyes. We're redoing everything. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. But you bring up a good point though, is we have the ability to course correct basically within seconds of something happening. If you are within that realm of process, like for instance, when I put out chapter one, I had one of my backers come back to me and they said, "Hey, this part in here was kind of confusing." And we talked about it, and I was like, "Yeah, actually, you're kind of right." So chapter zero was actually kind of born out of
Mm.
this person saying, "I don't understand this," and I said, let me flesh it out for you more. And so chapter zero is just basically kind of a prologue to help kind of explain a certain nuance in the story that may not have come across as well. And then I got a little overboard with it and ended up making it cooler. But you should always look to provide more. You should provide something that's better than what you think it is, even as best as you can. Always
Yeah.
listen to your backers, listen to the people, and of course, this is once you have people already behind you and are following you. Um,
Mhm.
for a lot of people, it's so hard to just get there. So value the people you've had. I know you and me talked about this before. Is once you start getting people, don't just like ignore them. Pay attention to them
Yeah.
because they've taken the time to be your cheerleader or to follow you. So go back and appreciate the people you have because they could leave. They could be gone the next week and they could just decide it's not worth it anymore. So uh, pay attention to who is following you, who is actually buying your work, and maybe do something special for them. Maybe give them like if they bought a product, put a little special like note in there, being like, hey, thanks for backing me, or thanks for buying this product, and here's a free coupon for your next purchase or something. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
go the extra
totally.
mile.
I totally agree. Now I think something I'm curious actually is, you talked about you don't have a YouTube channel. What has been your plan with this last campaign, and what do you feel like has worked to kind of
Mm.
get the word out and to get people to support?
Right. So number one was fulfilling that last one and just creating confidence. So part of it was just simply getting out there and just putting out a product, because you can't market unless you don't have a product. So many people fail at just simply saying, "Hey, I have this idea," and then they don't make big on it or they don't do anything with it. Um, so number one was just simply just get a product, and I'm passionate about doing, like, this story to me is all I can think about. Like when I'm at work, I'm probably daydreaming about this story a little too much. So the biggest thing that helped me with this campaign though was that I just networked with far more people than what I was last time, and I realized that um, 5 people was not enough to network. So I just said, I'm gonna get outside of my comfort zone. I'm just gonna start talking to everyone I can. And you know what? Sometimes that ended up being a really good thing. I grew connections out of that, became friends with some of these people. And then other ones, not so much. These people tended to send me back and be like, screw you. Like,
So are you saying like through like Twitter or through DMs or through like
yeah.
videos, or how have you created these conversations?
So a lot of times, if I saw a book that was in the middle of a campaign, or I saw a person that was working on something, I would just either fanboy over it in the comments, and then I would shoot them a message and just be like, I mean, I love your work. This is astounding. I wouldn't believe how many people didn't even know that I was a creator myself, because I just simply took it upon myself to just be a fan
Mhm,
and be a fan first and foremost. And then I started joining streams, and I just
mhm,
started in the stream, and I don't know why, but suddenly I started getting noticed in the streams. Like, they would pick my questions out of it. Like, there's been a bunch of people commenting in this stream right now, and for some reason I would get picked out of them. So I ended up starting creating connections because I was becoming familiar with a lot of people, and um, I started getting to know guys like Ifis and Paul and
mhm.
a few other people that I'm sorry if I forgot your names, but like these guys ended up coming out and helping me, and we started forming connections. And what a lot of people forget though is if you people want to extend a help for you, remind yourself that you should provide the opportunity as well, because they're going out of their way to help you. Think of what
Mhm,
that they're sacrificing to help you. One of the
mhm,
biggest things that was a big helper for me is like I was talking earlier, I was too afraid to show my face. And Paul, the Calvary Collective down there, he
mhm.
said, let's do an Instagram live. Let's get you talking about your book. Let's help this out. Let's get you out there. And I was so nervous. And he was like, you got this, man. So we did that, and we talked for an hour, and he just really helped me out, and he got me to open up and be like, you can do this. You got this, Nick. And so and he's got a book coming out called Bump Back, and people need to check that out. He's on Twitter as Paul Writes. Um, so everyone check that out. Bump Back. It's on my page as well if you can't find it. So a lot of it was just simply just getting out there, just hitting as many spots as I want, and kind of becoming obsessive about it. So uh, I went to streams. I found a project, and these weren't just like random things. I'd be like, oh, just talk to this random person. Like, there were people I purposely sought out that I wanted that connection. That um, they looked like they had the same interests that I had, and we could connect. Like, at least a connection could be out of that. And I've become friends with a lot of these people, and we support each other. And we're not always talking about comics on the side. We're not always talking about projects. We're talking about like, man, I had this thing come up, and it's like, hey, man, I hope everything goes good.
Yeah.
But the other thing though that was generally that helped me on the other side is having an artistic ability, is I could provide an artistic service to people that if you're a writer, maybe you can provide something else, but artistically I was able to just say, like, I want to do fan art of your character. And as indie creators, who doesn't love getting um, fan art of your character? Because
Right.
that shows appreciation and genuine respect for what you're working on. And
Mhm,
so if I could just shoot fan art for something that I really enjoyed, sometimes that opened a door. One of the biggest things that ended up breaking open for me was Travis and Luke Stone's book called Voodoo Nations that came out about a month ago or so, and that was running on Kickstarter. And someone said, "Hey, you should draw the character on that." And so I came in and I just did this portrait of the main character from not the main character, but the antagonist of the story. And I just gave him this like creepy look. And they liked it so much, they ended up using it as a variant cover, or as a cover for an ashcan that they're doing. And so I ended up getting connected with those guys, and they ended up giving me some more stuff, and they started connecting me out to other people. So there was two different areas that were kind of being played at the same time. So uh, you use your talents, use what you have. The biggest thing I always say is, God gave me a talent to draw. I should use it. I should use that to also glorify him and give him respect back. Um, so a lot of that was just me kind of paying forward stuff. And I guess that's the biggest thing I have to say is, if people are willing to share you, pay it forward.
Yeah.
Like you were talking earlier, you share out projects and everything, and if someone's sharing out your project, check out their stuff.
Right.
Don't take that for granted, because um, you never know. You never know who is suddenly will be there. Because I made mistakes. I've had it where someone supported me and I kind of ignored them, and
Hmm.
they never came back, and
Right.
I lost that opportunity. And you may never get that. You may never get that opportunity back, and you never know what was on the other side of that possibility. So
Yeah.
um, just talking to people is probably my biggest avenue right there.
Yeah. And it's such a testament too, because I tell people this, and sometimes I'm able to encourage them enough to where they actually do it. But some, probably more often than not, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily go and look at everybody's activity.
Right.
But you know, the thing is even now, like, people might say, oh, look, he's got, just got 10,000 subscribers and this and that. Like, again, that's a vanity metric. That
Right.
how many of those people will actually support me? I have no clue. But
Right.
that being said, like, even now, I I'm responding to almost every comment I get on
Mhm.
any platform. And luckily I still can for the most part. Um, and then not only that, same thing as you. I go into
Mhm.
live streams. If you go to certain people, if you go to Clint Stoker's live Sweetcast live streams, if you go to
Mm.
Alterna live streams, you're probably going to see me in there, and you're probably going to see comments popping up on the screen from me.
Mm.
Like, and not only that, when I go in there, I have people saying hello to me. They see that I'm in there all the time.
Right.
And sometimes I'll be in somebody else's live stream and I'll have people talking to me like, "Oh, you're that guy who did that mini comic video." Or
Exactly.
they'll be like, "Oh, I love your stuff. I just subscribed to you." Like, so all these little connections, like, I'm not doing it. I am doing it so that, I can try to keep getting
Mhm.
getting more support, but I'm also like, I love what I'm doing. Like, it's fun, I
Right.
enjoy it. And so, there's a double-sided thing there, but at the same time, like, it's just people don't realize how powerful that can be. And I wanted to say that that's a testament, though, what you're doing, because you have a book right now that is overfunded, and you're on the way to more, I'm sure, because it's still, you still got plenty of time.
Right.
And you know you don't even have a YouTube channel. I mean, you have a Twitter, you probably have some other social media. um you know and it's such a testament to just paying attention to the people who pay attention to you.
Yep.
First of all, that's just common decency anyways.
Yep.
But and then also going and, again, like, paying it forward and just commenting. Go to whoever you watch. All right, so, like, a lot of us have a YouTube watching habit.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Whoever you watch, if they happen to be, especially if they happen to be in the comic industry or in something that would be into what you're making, like, comment. you know Even if it's
Exactly.
not a live, it doesn't even have to be a live stream. Even just comment. Like, you don't know how many times I see somebody comment, and I look up their social media, I start checking out what they do, like, I
Yeah.
totally do that, or I go subscribe to their channel. Like, people see that. And not only that, sometimes I'll see people in the comments of Alterna live streams, or
Mhm.
whoever. I go in live streams and I'll go look them up and subscribe to them, and check
Yep.
out their videos.
Right.
So it works, and it's also just common decency of being involved, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it pays to not be a jerk too to other people, because people will see that. And like what you're talking about, like you're a very down to earth guy. Like you're easy to talk to, and that resonates with people. People are gonna feel comfortable. There's some people that you can talk to, and they simply just you just can't go any further than that. Like they
Right.
cut themselves off completely. So it pays to, like we were talking about earlier, be positive, be a force of, be a good influence, because you're putting yourself out there, and I think that's why you do so well. You're you provide value, you pay attention to what's going on around you and the people that are following you, you're able to connect and make stronger connections out of that. And that's, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And, there's also, people who do the exact opposite. I mean, Howard Stern is a household name,
Yeah,
this is like, again, even EVS, there's people who are out there who, don't do the same thing I do, but they have their own appeal, and they
right,
entertain, they still bring joy to people's lives in their own way, whether you agree with it or not, they do.
right,
So,
right.
I don't know. But so we've talked about this marketing a lot, and wow, we're already an hour and a half. So let me get to some of these questions here. I don't want to hold you up too long. That's already been pretty long. So we got the Flock comic. Nicholas, if you could pick a crossover with your main character, which indie series would you want to partner with, and which mainstream series would you want to partner with?
Well, that's a good question, and I actually did do a crossover already at the beginning, back in the summer with Robert and his character Clayman. That's actually a link right on the Kickstarter right there. Clayman and Raven Unite, which is a fun little experiment. I wanted to learn how to color a little bit better, and Robert's been a big supporter, and I like his character a lot. So, but next up would either be Ichthus's JRPG characters and Paul's Bumpback characters. They just seem to have like, that would just be like a cool connection to make. So in terms of mainstream though, I am a huge Ninja Turtle fan, and those are probably like my earliest drawings that I've ever did, and I used to draw them constantly and did a lot of fan comics back in the day. If anyone was part of the old Technodrome forum way back in the day, I was very much a part of the art scene there. So if I could ever, even though it's a completely clash of worlds, I would always love to work on like something Ninja Turtle related. That would kind of be like one of my bucket list things.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of our bucket list things.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I think we
good. That
probably
would
all
be
grew
cool.
up with Ninja Turtles and everything.
Yeah, everybody did who's who's been born anytime around that range and beyond, because
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
still around. Which is
And they're
crazy.
such a prominent part of like that. I mean, we could all probably claim our favorite Ninja Turtle and stuff, but that would be my bucket list thing right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it happens. It's not totally unreachable. It's because they're, you can still go see those people in conventions who created it. I think Eastman, at least, right? Or one
Yeah,
one
he
of
still
them.
goes to convent. Well, I mean, was before everything happened, but
Right, right,
so
right. We got Ichthus says Marsh was in a rap group. It explains a lot of him being a writer then. Yeah, it's funny. I've been thinking about that too recently, because um I was thinking about that. I'm like, you know what? I wonder if I am able to write. Like, I mean, I'm still learning. I got a lot to learn and grow as a writer.
mm,
But you know, I wonder if I have certain abilities to do that, partially, because I've spent a lot of time writing raps, like, and I really enjoy wordplay and things like that. So, it is interesting how, even though it's a very different thing, it does translate to a certain degree. And when I was doing hip hop songs a lot more, um, I was trying to bring story into it as well.
mm.
So a lot of times. So, yeah. Let's see what else do we got here. Free Jazz Filmmakers is here. Thanks for hanging out. The Flat Comic really agrees with you on something. I'm not sure what specifically. We said
Man,
a
I
lot of
forgot what it
things.
was.
But thank
I did see
you.
that Ichthus wanted to see show him off the original cover art. So
Oh yeah,
chapter
that's
two
right.
is done by Matthew Weldon,
Oh,
and
here,
hopefully you guys can see well.
let me
And
blow it up here, and
here,
let me
Mike, and
take that comment down. Where did it go?
I'll hold it.
That is really cool, though.
Yeah. So
What
man,
it
if
what is that now?
so,
That's the cover? Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
think
this
I
is the
saw
cover.
it.
He drew it and inked it, and then I handed it off to his the colorist for Punchline. So Matthew Weldon is the main artist of Punchline, not the DC villain. This Punchline came out way before DC's character. and it's a superhero story written by Bill and created by Bill and Weldon, and it's colored by Nestor Radulia. And so I had to get the Punchline team as much as I could to work on this. And he's got a video. If you look up Matthew Weldon, he's got a video of him actually drawing it and inking it. And it's if you're into that sort of stuff, process art, it's absolutely astounding. Because I now understand why people call him the human printer, because he doesn't work with like frames or anything like that. He honestly just draws it as is. So that what you see here is exactly what he drew. No erasers, nothing. And then he just goes to inks right there. But he's got so much on his plate that in order for him to keep up with the amount of work that he does, he does that. So I one day hope to aspire to get to that same level of craftsmanship, because that is outstanding. And it's all traditional. So watching him use the ink and everything to produce that is just amazing. So
well, that shows what you can do when you put a lot of work into it and take the time, to really, get that skill up, and
yeah.
I feel like anybody can really do things like that or whatever it is. Like, given enough time and enough effort, we could all be Kim Jong-il, probably.
Oh
Maybe.
yeah. Yeah, watching live videos of that guy draw just kind of makes my stomach churn, where I'm just like, ah. And he's talking about like how you envision things before you do it, and I'm like, man, it takes me a while to do that.
Yeah,
But
for sure. It takes me a lot longer to do something that some people can just knock off real quick.
right, and you got to be in a certain frame of thought process, and I mean, a lot of these guys, they just they have reference libraries in their mind, and I don't know. I hope to one day achieve that sort of mental capacity.
Yeah,
That
me too.
image library or whatever.
Free Jazz Filmmaker says, I really like Peter Draw's YouTube channel. Now, I bring this up here, and thank you for that comment. Peter Draws, he's another one who has I don't know if you've seen his stuff, Nicholas, but he has a very different appeal. He's he's goofy. He's a little bit of like an oddball, sort of. But it's a different appeal. He's got like a dry sense of humor. He does all these like doodles and stuff, but there is something interesting to the way he does it. I'll always remember the time where he like doodled on like, I think like a whole roll of toilet paper or something.
And this is called Peter Draws. Is that what you called it?
Yeah,
is that what it's called?
on YouTube. Yep.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah. If that's I think that's the same guy. I'm pretty sure. It's been a while. Well, I watched some of his videos recently, so I think it is, but same guy, Free Jazz Filmmakers, or could be a girl, I don't know, says, I'm trying to find a voice with YouTube. I want to find a style that suits my personality. One of my rules is no lo-fi hip-hop. Hey, well, that you'll probably stand out then, because people like to put that in there. So, hey, I mean, Free Jazz Filmmakers, I mean, maybe you got some jazz you can put in there or something.
Right.
There's all these actually, funny enough, there's all these kind of a lot of times female art YouTubers that are very popular. And they really had a huge surge, a couple years back, and they're still popular, but like there was that huge surge at one point. And one of them that really stood out, sometimes not for the best of reasons, was why can't she's like, I know, like I've talked to her, like I even know her, Holly Brown. And there's been some controversy around her stuff, but one thing I always thought, this is just a little interesting thing, is when she does her videos, sometimes her art videos, sometimes it's just like jazz in the background, and that's not something that usually is the music that people pick. That she had plenty of other things that stood out, from what she did. If anything, she was like the Howard Stern of the girl art YouTubers to a certain degree. But that being said, like that stood out to me, especially with her kind of attitude. She's got this kind of attitude sometimes, and just somebody who's not afraid to be honest, I think, which is, I think, a cool thing personally. But um but then she had like this like smooth jazzy backdrop, and
Oh
I'm
God.
like, it's like, that's interesting. It's got some cool contrast there.
I think there's very few
um
people who can get away with that. But jazz is I think one of those unique styles that it's really fun. I'll put it on when I have my kids going crazy, and it definitely helps kind of mellow the mood, to put it
yeah,
nice. Well, I
yeah,
guess it depends on
totally.
what jazz you have on, but um,
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what jazz too. I've heard some jazz that maybe would wake your kids up, but
yeah, yeah. I guess I should probably refer to more smooth jazz that tends
yeah.
to settle the storm.
Well, this is kind of interesting. Kindness can get you so much. Like, yeah, kindness. People underestimate the power of kindness, and you know, there's always, what is that quote? Well, people say like, don't mistake my kindness for weakness, things like that, because people do mistake
Yeah,
kindness for weakness, but
yeah,
that's not necessarily true. In fact, there's probably a lot of strength behind that kindness if they have the ability to be kind.
yeah. And being kind doesn't mean you won't get walked over. A lot of people take that as weakness, and they will take advantage of you. I mean,
Hmm.
um, there is a negative to being kind, which you have to be aware of. Is that, yeah, like he says, genuine kindness, not fake kindness, but is that you do have the possibility of people walking over you, using you, or um, uh, trying to use your platform to just simply promote themselves, and not. But I think that's where you have to understand the boundaries and what you're okay with, and just like with anything, like if you're in a relationship with someone, just understanding what you are okay with, and what you expect out of it. But yeah, kindness, like you're saying, it will take you further.
Yeah. It can, and just because you're kind doesn't mean that you have to be so kind that you're walked over anyways.
Yeah,
Um, but sometimes it takes a special something to have people maybe misrepresent you, or have people
yeah,
misunderstand you, or have people uh, you know, seemingly take advantage, and sometimes just letting it go, because
yep,
you that's not the battle you need to die. That's not the hill you need to die on. That's not the battle you need to fight.
yep.
That doesn't mean you don't have a battle you would fight. um,
The unfortunate part, though, is there is a sales tactic in rage buying, and I like that quilt. Yeah, Marshall will know that the quilt is hiding the basement exterior of my house right now. And the last show I was on with him, someone noticed all the meat sauce in our shelving unit behind me, and my wife said, "I'm not showing that off anymore." So she kindly put up a quilt for me. It kind of goes against my personality and everything, though. So
well, it works. It brings across the wholesome hominess and comfort.
which my book has none of those qualities behind it. So it's kind of a cool contradictory trait. Like my
There
book's
you
all
go.
about tragedy, depression, and a lot of violence and people getting the crap beat out of them. So um, it's two opposites of each other. Um,
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I was just kind of checking. There's a lot of cool comments in there. But I think that was kind of some of the stuff I wanted to highlight there, the questions and stuff. Other than that, man, like once again, man, let people know where they can find you. Again, there's also links in the description for his Twitter and for the Kickstarter, which I'll also put in the chat one more time. But let everybody know where they can find you, man.
all right, yeah. So I'm Nicholas Raven Mueller on Twitter and on Facebook. Every other site, though, you can go to my actual website, which is bmrcomics.com. and that's as Facebook as well. I have plenty of free items on there, like free previews and stuff to download. And currently we have a Kickstarter running called Demon Hunter Raven, and that's with chapters 0 through 2. And it's about over 100 pages worth of content you can get for it from $20 and up. So those are the places you can find me.
Awesome. And I just I was trying to do the comments, but then I realized I was on the actual YouTube channel and not on the back end part. So like it can get confusing, like doing these live shows sometimes, like you're like even just trying to get this thing off the screen and then and then try to pay attention to what's going on,
Right.
it's tough sometimes, but it's fun, and that's why it's a live stream and
people can see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys know where you can find me. Marsh makes I don't even know where I can find me. DonkeyJawProjects.com and Marsh Comics on Twitter. And thank you for everybody for hanging out, because it's just been a great time here in the chat. And please go over to the Kickstarter and support. I mean, I don't know, I think it's a pretty awesome story personally. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And other than that, thank you again, Nicholas, for coming on, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
And thanks for having me.
Anytime.